How did you feel about this chapter?
So I consider myself to be pretty stable emotionally. My therapist wouldn't say so, you know what I'm saying? But the reality of it, the way I felt about it was I felt relief.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that somebody finally understands, and maybe it's just my military training, but I felt like somebody finally understands how to look at an end state of what you want to be and then pull the arrow back. I like that analogy I'm actually saying it right now. Pull the arrow back and then release to the point that you want to be at, which means you have to look out to the distance of the thing and say, okay, what is it I want to do? I want to go and I want to, for example, I want to be a husband. Well, in order to do that, you have to know what a husband is. You have to sit down and study what it is to be a husband. And then you have to create yourself in that image. You have to be able to visualize that. You have to begin with your end state in mind and then draw back so that you can see what's going on so that you can hit your target. That's how I felt about it. That's just, to me, it's just wow.
So I honestly I don't know. I'm still processing how I feel about this chapter, but I do understand beginning with the end in mind. I do understand that backwards planning and preparation and all these steps that go into making your imagination or your visualization of reality is there. And I understand that. And like, with that being said, welcome back to Hidden Knowledge. This is your host, or these are your hosts, Kirk, and
I am Jonathan. Welcome back. Good to see you. So today we're going to be discussing part 2, habit 2, beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah. So for this one, usually it's Jonathan who's popping out the quotes. This one really struck me, and it's the beginning. It says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." By Oliver Wendell Holmes.
That sounds kind of sophisticated. What does that mean exactly?
So, like, the way I interpreted that, right, was the past don't matter because you can't go back and change it. The future is not here. So what we have here now is the present, and who exists here in the present, we do. And it kind of like goes with Stoicism a bit. So Stoicism says not to worry over the past or fret about the future, live in the now.
It sounds more complicated than the reality of it. To me, that thought references self-discipline. Stop worrying about the things that you can't control. You can't control the past and you can't control the outcome. The only thing that you can do is discipline yourself in the moment right now. Be aware of where you're going, but understand, unless you can travel forward in time and find out what someone else is going to do and how it's going to play out, it's kind of pointless to worry about it. The only thing you do, and that's why we train. We train, the military has the saying, we train how we fight. We continuously try to apply that pressure so that when we find ourselves in the circumstance, although we don't know what it is, we'll be used to the stress period and be able to kind of feel the moment out and make decisions inside of that.
That kind of like hit me. And that brings us to our first subtopic, which is principles of personal leadership.
So where did your mind go with this?
So like the visualization, I sat there. Actually, it's an audiobook for me because like I'm going between the audiobook and the physical book to make sure I get a better understanding this time. And I sat there the first time and I just chill. I was driving and he was talking about a funeral. I was like, okay, I could see it. And then he's like, so what if it's you, right? And then all of a sudden my mind started spinning like out of control. I was like, what would people say about me when I'm dead? The truth I then realized within that moment was I had to accept what they were going to say, because at that point, I can't stop them then and I can't stop them now.
Yeah.
What I can do is to hold myself accountable, in which I came up with this question. If we all want our lives to have matter, right, when we die, then why most of us don't spend the time we have to build our eulogy, right? And like I said, that for me, when I realized that I can't really control what people are going to say, think, and do when I'm here and when I'm dead, I realized, hey, only I can write what I would have wanted, and it should matter to only me. Whether other people accept that, it's up to them. So
I understand what you're saying. And to me, principles of personal leadership, I think subconsciously we all know what a good leader is, because we all want one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like I think there's a giant gap between, this person has potential, and I hate that word. I don't hate the word. I don't like the word potential when it's used to describe a person. You either are something or you're not something. And if you're not something and you're like, if you are or aren't something, if you're neither one of those things, then you're not expressing potential, you're practicing.
True.
But you could quit at any time and then not be. Like, potential is like, I don't know. I feel like I just said some bull. You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe I just confused myself, or maybe I just backtalk myself. I'm not really, but I think it's subconsciously, it's all something that we do. We all take intentful action, and we all reap what we sow. And that is like what our mission statement is. And that is how we kind of get where we're going. And that is the principle of leadership. I think that this section intentfully was talking about a mission statement. And I'll elaborate more because it goes into it on the next section. But the way I related to that is I have what I call a basement. And in my basement, most people, you say, oh, we got cobwebs and all these boxes and stuff down there. There's boxes, but it's very well organized. And to me, it's a catalog of all the experiences that I had in my life with or without someone, or with or without me being involved, like watching crackheads fight, or watching people get divorces and argue and go through these things. And you sit there and you look at it, it's like, man, like most of these people are arguing because they're just not being good people. Their expectation of someone is not what they're willing to give. And that's what I built. So when you talk about your eulogy, I like, to me, after I'm dead, it don't matter what the hell you say about me. Like, I'm disinterested. I should be, according to everybody else, Jesus or the devil has me. You know what I'm saying? And therefore, I'm not listening to anything that anybody's got to say. I'm there. Okay. And so what matters to me is the house that I build on that basement. What you're saying about me while I'm here matters to me a certain extent, because I know my character. I know what I have in my basement. So if you try to paint me in a bad light, I'm just going to go ask you the question, like, what did you think you were going to gain from this? Because my reputation, as far as I'm concerned, the same way people talk about Jesus, I have a reputation as well. You have a reputation in the military. Make sure you got evaluations, records. People make phone calls, send emails about you, and that's how I related to that. That personal leadership is, where am I taking me? What have I decided that I want to be my thing? And regardless of what bad thing somebody says, eventually the truth will come out. So we hope.
I get the part that you were talking about when it related to potential, and it's kind of like the haves and the have not, right? So, like you said, it's been practicing. So your potential is it's like you have the ability to, but you're not doing it, so you're a have not. And you are doing it, so you have. And I think potential in this way is realized when what we do is actually written in stone. It's a fact.
Yeah,
we have done it, and I think that's how we actually should measure potential. As for the like your reputation, right? Like as it pertains to our eulogy, I do realize that everyone has a reputation, but then there are some people who will kill to protect their reputation when they know they're not good people.
That's interesting. And that leads us to the next part when you're talking about by design or default. And I'll lead out with this one. So one of my ad lib, it's another way of saying one of my favorite quotes. And I often have this conversation with my children. I love being a father, but it is, we see the world as we are, not as it is. And that quote, Stephen Covey's, if you Google that quote, you'll find out Stephen Covey said it. Anais Nin said it. I actually found like 2 or 3 more people that have been quoted saying this in their book. So it's kind of like, you feel like you're kind of passing the torch on to other people. And what that means to me is that it's both. By design, we are a thing. And by default, we have the ability to become something else. We have the ability to learn and grow. And that capacity exists until we die.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And that's crazy because, like, while I was thinking about it, I actually got another quote which I put in there.
That's funny.
Super long, and it reads as follows: "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." Right? It is founded on our thoughts and made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or act with evil thought, suffering follows him, as the wheel follows the hoof of the beast that draws the wagon. If a man speak or act with good thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. By Gumta Buddha, right? And it's interesting, like how you said that, right? We see the world as we are, not as it is. And I thought of it in a way that some of us, like, by design or default, whether like you want to say, hey, my life is like this because I designed it or someone else designed it, or my life is like this because fate or free. It's the kind of this idea of like fate versus free will, the way I saw it and how we attack it. But then the way I saw it, right, what people usually call fate, I call their thinking patterns, right? Because the sum of all of our experiences can be summed up by our very own perspective.
Yeah.
Just because you and I grew up in the same neighborhood doesn't mean that we both have to be the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like people get into the fault, but like the biggest issue we as humans have is that we like to give our power to someone else. I didn't do it. It was God's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was God. It was the devil. It was like you weren't even there.
It's not to blame and take all the credit when it goes right.
Yeah. Or give all the credit, and instead of it being a process of chance.
That's true.
And so I was talking to my son, and I try to give him little evolutionary tidbits of wisdom that I've learned growing up, so that when he gets to a certain point in his life, hopefully he can look back and say, my dad told me about this, or we had this conversation, and we kind of touched on this. But discipline does not find you when you need it. It's like a field. It's a field that you plan on growing something in, and it has to be cultivated. You're not just going to become like people think you just go to combat and by chance you're going to come out alive. You know what I'm saying? It's by chance that you die, but it's intentfully that you survive where you're going and you're learning how your enemy moves or how people think and how those things work. Michael Jordan did not become good by chance. You know what I'm saying? He disciplined himself to that, to a point where, I mean, what else did he do? Play golf and basketball, you know what I'm saying? But he became what he was. And with that, I say one of the biggest pointless things that I've heard people say all the time is think outside the box. And that to me, it touches on this design or default. By design, we have to learn and we try. By default, we have the ability. But when you tell someone to think outside the box, you have to understand that you got to put something in the box to be able to think of what's outside the box. If they don't know what they currently possess in a way, like by design, what do you currently have by design? Then you don't even know what to go search for that you would need by default.
Yeah, sure.
I hope I made sense. I feel like I make sense sometimes, and then I realize that I did not. But this is where we are.
Yeah. So we're here at Personal Mission Statement. And it's just a question that I'd like to like let sit there and marinate. And the question is, what grounds you?
I can answer that question right now.
Yeah, like but other people don't think it out. Like, what grounds you, or what keeps you present? Let me ask it in that way. What keeps you present? Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Oh, word. I didn't know if he was going to answer it or not. Hey, so I mean, but what keeps me present? Like, I have a strong desire to do the right thing, even when everybody else isn't, or even when the odds are against me, even when it might get me in trouble. Like, what grounds me is not being a coward, and not in a coward like to everybody else, but a coward to me.
Okay. Like
to sit back and say, I remember when I was in middle school, this kid, he looked like a little rat. I mean, there was no way around it. He looked like a little rat. He was just this little weird kid, holes in his coat, stuff like that. He was worse off than what I was, is what I remember. And I remember I was sitting in the gym one day, and I was going to Nolan Middle School, and I was on the bleachers. And I mean, I can remember this. I have a very visual memory. So I'm like, you walk into the gym, and the bleachers were on your left-hand side, volleyball court, basketball court, all this kind of stuff. And I remember sitting on the bleachers, and we're just sitting there hanging out, and these kids were making fun of him. And I was like, yo, like, shut up, leave him alone. And they're like, oh, he's this, that, and the third. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, shut up, leave the kid alone. So they left him alone. It was what it was. The next day, I go in the gym, I'm sitting there, I hear this kid making fun of somebody.
Oh, no.
And I'm sitting there, I got so mad. I was like, yo, bro, like, I stood up for you, you piece of shit. And I was like, yo, shut the And he was like, what? And I was like, dude, like, yesterday someone was picking on you, and I stood up for you, and now I walk in here, you picking on somebody else. Like, what kind of asshole did you make me look like? Like, that shit was rude. Now, I'm not trying to make myself seem like I'm super, like, the dude that just always knew what to do. That wasn't it. I just went through some shit earlier in my childhood that caused me to I just don't like that shit. Like, it's not right. Don't, like, I believe in, like you said, the social contract. My social contract with everybody is, if I don't know and I'm unwillingly participating in something that I did not agree to, I'm going to get mad. Because when I ask you to participate in something, I tell you what's involved in it, because I don't want you making decisions without the information. So, like, to me, I do things intentfully. Like that is my personal mission statement. I do things intentfully. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to deceive anybody, and I don't want to be hurt or deceived. And throughout my childhood, I watched people do weird shit to have it all.
I think like just to add to that, like weird shit to have it all from. But if you do pay attention to the people who are at the top, they're just grown children with a lot of money to have toys.
Yeah.
And they don't think about the repercussions because of like they're selfish.
But really, I mean, maybe they're thinking about the repercussions as it pertains to them, and they don't give a shit about you. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe. But to answer that question for myself, what grounds me is the fact that I want to make this world a little better when I leave it than when I came into it. And as pertaining to
as cliche as that sounds.
As cliche as it sounds, like I do want to make this world a better place as much as I can. Kind of, which is why we're doing this here.
Hey, and it's a good time. It's complicated, y'all. It's complicated, man. It ain't the easiest thing we've ever done.
That's true.
And so, what would you say that in that is your personal mission statement?
So I would say in that, so I strive to do 5 things when I did bad shit, which kind of like made me realize my center is not to chase. I used to have a money center. I'm not gonna lie. I used to just want money, and I realized that like one day I sat down and I was like, closed my eyes and I imagined myself as the richest person in the world, right? And then while there, I realized that I didn't have a family, right? And then what my biggest thing was, and I said it out loud so that I can understand it at the time, was having all the money in the world and no one to share it with. And then I realized, hey, money isn't really what I'm after. What I want is a family. So I strive to be an honest person, right? That is loyal to myself. And with the business dealings that I'm doing, I always think of a way that everyone can win, right? If it's at all possible. And if not, I usually take myself from the situation. I think I want to do right by myself and others. Because some people, believe it or not, in my childhood have like kind of screwed me over and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I want to have a place where I can just be me. Like I'm a weird person, you know. When I'm by myself, I'll be chopping it up. I sing, I do whatever. I feel like I'm just as happy. Yeah. I would say I'm as happy as a dog just chilling in the freedom, and I enjoy that freedom. So I strive for these things because I know if I walk the straight and narrow, now and always, I'll be able to have what I want, do what I want to do.
You have a greater chance.
A greater chance as long as I'm not like hurting or stepping on anyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's real. For me, because we're at the center, like the thing that I do is as ridiculous as it's going to sound, I put myself at the center. Like it doesn't matter what goes on, it matters that I have control of myself. So a lot of people be like, oh, well, this happened and therefore I reacted. And that's to me, it's a childish thing to say. Well, you did this, so I did that. And you did this, so I did that. And it's like, okay, so this went bad. And I remember, I got an example, right? I remember when I was a sergeant first class in 2ID up in Camp Red Cloud. And I was an NCOIC of the CNR, Combat Net Radio Platoon. And I'm in the office doing some paperwork, and one of the NCOs walks in, E5. I can't remember. I want to say his name, but it's not coming to me right now. I know it started with an S. And he walked in, he was like, hey, sorry, we got a problem. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, the safe that we're using, somebody's drilled it before, so by regulation, we're not supposed to use it anymore. And I think I said this with the last book too, but this is what's ringing to my head. And then I was just like, okay, so what's the solution? He was like, well, we could either act like we don't know and just keep using it, or we got to find another safe to put it in. And I was like, and which one do you think I want? You know, he's looking at me like, and I'm like, I want you to go find another safe. And granted, it's going to inconvenience us, but I want to be right. He asked me something else later on, like, and I had to pull him in and finally just tell him, like, hey, look, the baseline for me is this. I don't care how hard it is. I want it right because I'd rather work hard now than have to work hard and suffer a different consequence that I don't control later. Like I'm in control of this reality of, it's going to take me 3 hours to go and draw the ComSec and do this, that, and the third. But I wouldn't be in control of handcuffs and who had the ComSec or put this stuff and it wasn't supposed to be in a place. Like I'm just not willing to do that. And so what I always do is focus from the inside out. What must I be in order to obtain the thing that I want? And the thing that I want is to be at peace. I want to be at peace. That is all.
I guess that's what we all want at the end of the day.
But in order to do that, I believe that if I do the hard work up front, then inevitably it should work out in the end. If it doesn't, then I mean, I can say I tried.
It's kind of interesting because you did answer my first question was Mr. Master.
No.
He said that.
You got the glow.
Yeah. For me, what it meant was kind of like PDM, which the acronym I learned from you. But I really
the army teaching
purpose, direction, and motivation. I thought it outlines who you are as a person and holds one's perspective. So some people have tremendous paradigm shifts, right? And I think that's because what was at their center was changed, right? So now you're able to look at the world with a fresh pair of eyes. Yeah. And I wanted to ask this to you and everyone else out there. What gives you your sense of worth or your security?
For me, my sense of worth is in how I am able to help the people around me, in all honesty. I feel bad if my son fails at something. I feel bad. Like every once in a while, I sit down with my kids and I have conversations and then I tell them like, I failed you. I feel like I failed you because we're here and I'm supposed to be the leader of the family. I'm supposed to be the example. So what is it that I'm doing? I try to take onus of what I'm doing. And then once I identified, okay, so now that we know what I'm doing, what could you have done better? What could you have done better? And so that it gives me my sense of worth and my sense of security is surrounding myself around people that are willing to gut me for the truth.
Okay.
Like my brother Kareem, my brother Bethel, my brother Daniel, Marshall, like these cats will hold me accountable till the death. They will sit me down and tell me, you are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong. And they will not let me live, outside of that. And that keeps me secure knowing that if I ever step out of the bounds of who it is that I said I want to be, somebody's always there that we've cultivated such a beautiful relationship that they can just tell me like, hey dog, like you're completely out of pace, or you can say you're right and you're in danger because you're not doing anything about it. You know what I mean? Like it goes both ways. So that is my sense of worth and my sense of security.
I guess I have to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm waiting on.
So what gives me my sense of worth is I'd say essentially two things, but it's probably just one, is knowing that no matter what happens or whatever I did or did not do, I have to take responsibility for a decision that I have or had made, and even if it means it's right, even if it means it was right or wrong for me in the moment, and I perceive it as right, as long as I'm able to take some extreme responsibility for it, there's a chance for me to grow, and I believe that in just that little bit of growth, there's a sense of worth for me because I know I'm still alive.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So now we've arrived at this point, and I know we kind of touched on this already. We're talking about visualization and affirmation. My oldest daughter, India, when we used to have conversations and she would go through and she was, going out of her teenage and going through her thing, I would sit down and she would always, you're not helping me or you're this. And I was like, I can't do it for you, girl. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I can't do it for you. I said, but I'll tell you the truth. What? Life is going to keep asking you the same question until you tell the damn truth. It does not matter what it is. Life is going to keep asking you this. You're going to keep finding yourself in the same exact circumstance until you tell the truth. Whether it be relationships, work, your car breaking down, you are involved in all of the turmoil and the peace in your life. And that was the biggest point. And so as you sit down and you just visualize all the things going on in your life and how you're participating in them and then what you can do. And I say it to be like, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna stop running my mouth. Right? How do we even know that Jesus existed? And I recognize that this is gonna, like, the thought of the conversation. It sounds kind of like controversial and jacked up. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, the reason that we know is because we were told. We don't have an inherent knowledge. There is no inherent memory of this. We're told this, which means everybody else around you is talking as well. Everybody's participating in something, and when you choose to participate in it, that is what you're visualizing. That's your center. That is what you're projecting, because it's what you're allowing yourself to receive. So then you ask yourself, oh, how do you want people to speak about you at your eulogy? Like, I don't give a damn how people speak at me after I'm dead. What are you saying about me now? What is my reputation now? I can tell you, I know when I get to work, I got a reputation. I'm chief. I'm this. I'm supposed to have this intellect and da-da-da. But mostly they know I'm not going to do what's wrong. You can ask me 100 times to do something. Hey, no, I'm not having soldiers do that. I've had to go sit down with my commander. Sir, we're wrong. We can't continue to put soldiers in this circumstance when they're not being supervised. They're not this, and it's wrong. I understand, Chief. You're right. Let's do what we got. And we have those conversations. But you have to decide, like, which do you want? Visualize the thing that you want. And then in order to affirm it, you must understand that Jesus sat down with 12 disciples. He sat down with people and he told them who he was. And then he held himself personally accountable for it. That's everything in this chat. That's everything in this second habit is revolving around you visualizing who you are, professing who you are, and then affirming through action who you are. Which I didn't mean to say anything about affirmative action, Black people. I'm just saying. You affirm through action who you are.
For me, I kind of went back to like a thought we had earlier. So with the visualization, right, and the affirmation and stuff like that, as we have said, right, and we kind of brushed over it. All things are created twice. First in the imagination, and then with action, which can either be by design or by default, right? But what we as human beings have done is we would protect our iPhone, we would protect our house, we would protect whatever property that we claim we have. But the one thing that we should protect, we don't, and that's our mind, right? And we allow ourselves to be, and I'm guilty of it, and for which, right, I am growing from it. Is we'll watch stuff that don't agree with us. We'll like do things that are outside of our character. We'll imagine issues that are not there, and then we will go in and act as if it's all true. And that's an issue that we face in today's society, especially with our news stations and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
They don't report 80 to 90 good stuff that's happening. They're looking for that bad 10% and then put a microscope on it, blow it up so it looks like 100% of the people all the time are like doing bad things. And that then in turn, what we as people are doing, because we are watching and supporting this, like they say, hey, America feeds off drama, right? Something bad has to be going wrong for us to be entertained by it. Why can't it be something good, right? And so we allow images to reprogram our subconscious, which then propels our thoughts into a negative state of mind, and we then act on our thoughts, because once we act on it, it then becomes our reality.
Yeah.
So that vicious cycle just keeps on going around.
The issue I think with that is that most people don't even recognize that there is another reality. Like I never really used to watch the news. I still don't really watch it now. I use it for the stock market and so on, and just kind of, when I get up in the morning. But when I was in Iraq and you go and you do something and then you see what you did on the news and they're saying something completely different, like things like that is what brings that to light. Most people don't ever step outside their bubble. Like there's people in Tennessee that have never left the city or the town that they're in Tennessee, and they still get Fox News. You know what I mean? Like, sure. And so their entire image of outside society is that. But they're able to talk to people all over the world. But what is the likelihood that they're going to accept your reality when they don't know you? When, you know what I'm saying, Bob the Who the Bada is on news channel is going to be more reliable. We don't have, it's crazy with all this technology. I wrote a paper about this when I was in Iraq about how technology, we spend more time trying to fix the connection than we do actually connecting with people the more technology we have. Like sitting down writing a letter is like a lost damn art. But you communicate. Me and my wife write letters in a book. You know what I'm saying? Things that we can't necessarily talk about to each other. We feel like, or I feel like she might get upset, or she feels I might get upset. We still talk about it. We just write it down in a book. But most people will sit back and be like, I'm like, no, like this is this. And I tell you the story, and I'll say it again. All my story is repetitive and cyclical and continuous, and it happens. But when I went, the mother of all my kids, I went to Florida to like visit her sister. We drove a car there, and I was teaching her little sister how to drive. And she was like, I said, you got to come to Texas and visit. And she's like, I don't know how to ride a horse. Wait, what? Like, I drove here in the car, but her mind, you know what I'm saying? Her mind, what she visualized was her reality. That's the only thing she can speak from. So again, you see the world as you are, not as it is. You know what I'm saying? Like you sit down and you visualize. Don't write your eulogy, write your life. Like at the end of your life.
I think that's what the eulogy is, though.
Is it though?
Writing your life. I think, but other people writing your life from their perspective, which is skewed, right?
And in some ways it might be skewed, in some ways it might be accurate. But that is it completely upon how honest you are with the world and how honest the world is with you. And it's funny. I have a saying. I don't have a saying. Me and my wife have lots and lots of conversations. We interact with people. And she's like, you're so mean. You're so this. You're so that. And I was like, am I though? Like what I said was true. Yeah, but you didn't have to say it like that. These words, if you go, they have synonyms and they have antonyms. I'm not in charge of that. I just showed up here. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't write that in this dictionary.
I just showed up here.
I showed up here and I learned the words and I use them. And I use the simplest version of them to get my point across. What can I do to protect your feelings?
I people are sensitive today. Very sensitive. I mean, some things people say does hurt my feelings, but do I act on it? So I just like, okay, I guess, but then I get over it.
Feelings are a measuring tool.
Yeah, and then like you use like when someone says something about you that you don't like, usually if you get offended, it's because subconsciously
there's some truth to it.
There's some truth to it, so you got to sit down and
people are like, oh, that's what you think? I have a habit. Oh, that's what you think? Okay, well, I mean, that's cool. Who is it? Hey, Dot Mickens, shout out. CW4 Mickens. When I first met her, she was like, I don't like you. You're arrogant. Da, da, da. And I was like, your inability to perceive me is not my responsibility. And she was like, what? And I was like, I'm not arrogant. I'm confident. There's a difference. If I don't know something, I'll say that I don't know. Would an arrogant person do that? She said, no. I said, then that's that. We're good friends now. It took a while for us to kind of feel each other out, but she was like, you're this. And it's because I made some snarky comments when we was about to deploy to Afghanistan, and they were playing a call to prayer. They just played it while we were all in the room together. And so at the end of it, I said, and Tupac lives. And she thought it was disrespectful, which it was kind of rude. You know what I'm saying?
But I have a question for you, though. Did they ask people that they were going to do that, or they just did it?
Well, we were on a place like when you mob out, and when you mob, they take you to this place and they kind of do things to simulate the environment. So we knew they were going to do it. But I also was the guy that when the general told us we were deploying, he looked nervous. We were all on the rifle range. And when he told us, he's like, hey, we're going to deploy to Afghanistan, which we already figured it out because the officers started acting funny. I was still at E5 then. And so they was like, anybody got any questions? And everybody just kind of sat there. And I was like, I got a question. And he's like, and I was like, sir, will they have ice cream there? And he's like, what? And I said, ice cream. If they don't have ice cream, I am not deploying. I promise you. And he just kind of looked at me and he was just like, it was like a weird question. I don't know. And I was like, well, I think we should find that out immediately. So I ended up going Advon. And when I went to go get on the bus, he came up to me and he was like, hey, like, I appreciate what you did. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, I was real nervous. And I talked to my wife about what you said about ice cream. And he was like, so I'm going to give you an order. Like, I want you to go to Afghanistan. And like I said, I was on Advon. He's like, when you get there, go scope out the ice cream and then send me a message and let me know. Okay. So I went to Afghanistan. We got off the plane and everything. I went to the DFAC, found out ice cream. I took a list of ice cream and emailed him, hey, sir, if you could let everybody know. And there's vanilla, strawberry. There is no pecans and this and that and the other. And I was like, so old people don't have ice cream because they only like, this, that, and the other. It was real. Yeah, we only like butter pecan.